Here we've got people popping in quickly. Hello, Kathe Petchel.
Hi, Kathy.
Got the Kathys here. We're just making your life easy. I see we have a Kathy guest, so we're just everywhere. Thank you guys for joining us. We've had the most fun this year with our staff theme. We're feeling your pain. We're hearing from you guys constantly. Kathe Petchel has been a champ in throwing out some fabulous content this year on real concrete solutions for you guys to help resolve some of your staff issues. So if you haven't seen it yet or did not attend, we had 12 this year. You can access all of those from our website at hingebrokers.com, as well as past year themes. We have set our schedule for 2019. We're going to have a succession planning theme, what you need to do for your future today. Got to start thinking about it way ahead of time. Also, our conference theme this year is succession planning, so I'll talk about that a bit more. Kathe and Petchel and I are wrapping up the year with a quick recap of the content from this year, along with some questions that were submitted in advance. Really great questions, and I hope we can get through at least those, but there are a lot, and I kind of grouped them by theme. But if we want to give you guys a chance to ask questions as well, we will run out of time, but no worries. We will get back with you guys in writing with answers to your questions, or we're happy to talk to you guys individually and help you with some of the challenges you're having in your school with your team. So let's get started here. What we have to talk about today is I want to tell you about a couple of upcoming events at Hinge. We want to recap our key points from this year's series. We want to answer your questions and then get you guys prepped to tune into our 2019 series. In news here at Hinge, we have our annual conference coming up in February. We have our content is built around the theme of succession planning, which is our 2019 content series. So we'll kick it off with our conference. We have John Warlow, the author of Built to Sell, here to talk about getting your company ready for its future. We have Bruce Karpus, the CEO at Creme de la Creme, as a keynote speaker, as is Roger Neugebauer, the founder of Childcare Information Exchange and the World Forum on Childcare. We have 5 shifters who are people doing dynamic things in their company that will talk to us about specific things. And we've got some great breakout sessions. Kathe will be doing a day content on staff strategies. We have a speaker coming from Indeed. They're based in Austin, where our conference is, so we're happy to host them. We have a lot of fun at the same time. It's a cool hotel. We're going to do an opening event at a Container Bar across the street. We're right in walking distance of the food trucks. It's just a fun time. So consider joining us. We are limited to 300 guests. We try to keep it small and keep it very interactive, so you guys consider that. We will have a special 12 days of Shiftmas coming up with a last discount on the conference. So from December 26th to January 6th, look out for a $100 discount. So a little bit more information. I'm assuming that there is a market rate director, or if you are the owner director, you're paying yourself a market salary. This would include the director, the assistant director, if you have one, all the team members, teachers. It includes their vacation pay and any other benefit pay that you pay them. It's very important to track this expense as a % of your revenue, because as it goes up and down, obviously your salary should go up and down. The second benchmark at 70% is total all-in staff cost of 52%. Maybe up to 55. So that would include salaries, payroll taxes, employee benefits, training, and all those great little warm and fuzzies you do for your team that Kathe will recommend to you. So anything it costs you to put into your team members, 52 to 55%. when it cost us 52 to 55 cents on every dollar we earn from parents or wherever the source of money is to take care of our people, it's critical that this gets managed properly. So 3 things for me to manage this cost properly. First of all, have a tool such as ProCare, OnCare, one of the tools that will show you parent schedules and that you can create a logical staff schedule. So start with a tool that allows you to create a schedule. The schedule's never going to be perfect because you're going to get the flu and the teachers are going to be out or the kids are going to be out or it's a holiday week or I'm short here, or so you got to have a plan. Then you have to manage by walking around. Kathe will talk about the figure 8 concept, but to know constantly what's going on in your classrooms. Are we at a ratio where we can send somebody home? Do I need another team member here? Where are we? And don't ignore the power of saving the 15 minutes of salary at the end of the day. Which leads me to the third, which is engage your team and knowing what the ratio should be and when one of them is allowed to leave because they're under the ratio. Typically, somebody can't wait, especially this time of year. Please send me home. So once you get your team trained and one of them says, hey, we're there, can I check out now? Then because you can't be everywhere every 15 minutes, once you get your team trained and engaged, that's a powerful part of the process. So that was number 1. And KP, I'll turn it over to you to recap the others that you presented this year.
Sounds good. This is going to be a challenge. I'm going to try, though. I'm up for it. First of all, I want to reiterate what Kathe said, and especially since the whole philosophy behind Hinge Brokers is making you accountable for your finances and helping you grow your business in a positive way without sacrificing anything about quality and growing your core values and your team. So a couple other reminders on her points would be having a tracking schedule so that the teachers know exactly how many children are in the room in terms of ratios at any moment. If you look at the trends, sometimes you can bump staff schedules, and to Kathe's point about the 15 minutes here and there, really make a little bit of savings. Would you rather be overstaffed or be able to have extra money to grow staff and do raises, add quality to your program? And then another idea would be the concept of being overhired versus overstaffed. I love to be overhired, extra staff for what Kathe just talked about. When the flu hits, it's a snow day, someone's little one has to get tubes in their ears, all those things and legitimate reasons where when our teachers need to be out, we want to have a bench and build your bench with your staff as well as your managers. And then the third one would be hiring on core values so that everyone understands how to manage themselves so you don't have to micromanage. So those would be wrapping up about the labor. And I say that because our labor costs are really the largest cost we have. And so as much as you're tracking that, all the better. I'm going to jump into creative hiring strategies for your childcare business. So there's so many, and we devoted at least 2 sessions to this. And when we speak nationally, we talk about this all the time. And people actually either reach out to us later or follow up later on this. So the couple things would be spread a wide net, cast a wide net. So that would be Indeed, it might be Newton, it might be Handshake, which is an awesome app and platform that engages college students. Maybe they're looking for jobs in your area just, after I live in Charlottesville, and so we have the University of Virginia here. People that are in larger markets, bigger cities, might have 2 or 3 or 4 colleges. Engaging with Handshake allows you to leverage a lot of college students, not just ones in your city, but ones that maybe live in your city or coming home. Right now, University of Virginia is doing final exams. And so we're trying to get some of our college students from last summer back. So sometimes you have to just have a little game of big jigsaw puzzle and how can you fit in staff like college students. Another one would be Indeed and changing up your ads. I think if you change your languaging, say you're hiring teachers and you want them to be energetic, and you run that ad for a while, maybe change it up to positive, want to make a difference with children, and just that headline, just like we do our subject lines on our CRM drips, If you change up the headline, you're going to engage different people. Definitely putting out in your ads what your core values are. Ours are nurturing, learn, communicate, trust. So I might do an ad that says, do you love to nurture children and their families? Are you a good communicator? Or I might do a more creative ad that might say, do you love getting up to your elbows in purple Play-Doh or black and white paint? Do you love to play outside in nature? That would be a nod to my core value of outdoor classrooms and having children outside a lot. So being creative with your hiring strategies, casting the net, and then the last piece on that, which I haven't talked about this year, but it's kind of new, it's kind of obvious too, just vet like crazy. So cast a big net and then vet, vet, vet. If you watch anything with EntreLeadership with Dave Ramsey, he thinks you should just interview like nobody's business. Bring them in, do the phone interview, then bring them in for an initial interview, and then maybe a couple people on the team do a group interview. Then you're going to maybe send them to the school and see what your staff think. I like to have parents weigh in, especially if I'm having a bump and having just the darndest time getting a toddler teacher in a particular room. I want to put my money where my mouth is and engage with my parents. I'm not afraid to say, hey, we need help. So again, back to casting the wide net. The hiring process, I have a really structured hiring process. It's about 4 pages. And not that it's perfect all the time, but I want to be very systemized and structured. I think it's really important to be fair to every candidate. And I also think it's super important not to waste anyone's time. So when we start with the phone screening or the initial email inquiry, I'm going to make sure I know what the pay range is. If I've posted it, which Indeed requires you to, for instance, and some of the other platforms don't, I'm going to make sure that $12 to $14 an hour that I have posted, I'm making this up now, for a certain position, that's going to work for them. You don't want to fall in love with Wonder Woman or fabulous male teacher that has everything you want and then find out they have to have $17 or $18 an hour. Back to what Kathe started with, the first part is controlling your labor costs. They might very well be worth that amount, but you want to really think long and hard about bringing someone new in at a much higher rate and what that would do to the rest of your team. Honestly, then you need to bump everybody else up that is similar in quality or skill set, years of experience, or education. So you want to be a little bit careful about that. But having a structured hiring process is really helpful. I modeled after Top Grading, which is a popular business book, and the idea would be vet, vet, vet. Just really take a lot of time to vet. And I'm going to move on because I'm looking at the quarter after already. Another one we talked about this year is the onboarding process. Again, should be very structured, should be very systematic and very detailed. You'll want to make sure that it's checked off and you're documenting like nobody's business. Documenting is going to make sure that when that bump in the road hits 3 months from now and the staff is breaking a bunch of your rules or maybe gossiping, that you go back and you're able to say, let's go ahead and review the things we talked about at onboarding, and let's remind me what your understanding is of the gossip policy, for instance. You've got it signed right there. It's going to give you a lot of leverage if, unfortunately, the day comes that you have to let the staff go. Back to documentation. And then engaging your team in the onboarding process is critical. You'll either engage a regional or administrative staff member. You might engage a mentor teacher. You might engage someone that just absolutely loves to chit chat all about your program and your core values. Or maybe one of my best onboarders was my least educated staff member, but the most oriented towards the day-to-day, basically childcare, daycare piece. If we're not remembering about bleaching the tables and diapering procedures done correctly, or the procedures for injuries or communicating to parents, it doesn't matter if they have a master's degree on that. It's the people that boots on the ground have the best skill set to do the training. And then the last piece on that we talked about was remembering that you're working with adult learners. And adult learners, just like the kids, need customization, right? We're teachers, so we should be really good at that. And I find it actually fascinating to work with adult learners. Sometimes they just pick up things very quickly, but sometimes they need to hear things 5 or 6 or 7 times. After about 7 times, I get a little frustrated about an easy question. Sometimes I think they're trying to get me to just change my policy or change my answer. but in general, adult learners, do they like hands-on learning? Nothing better than diapering a baby doll and videotaping them, making it really fun. Oh, you forgot to wash the child's hand after diapering. Much better than to do it with a real child, because we wouldn't want to forget that. So making it really fun, and now with iPhones and cameras and whatnot, so fabulous. The other piece on that is engaging the parents on the training. I like to let parents know, welcome Miss Jessica, she's in the such and such classroom with this age. Please let us know how she's doing. Don't be a stranger, she wants to meet you. And then, but also if you have any ideas on how we can better help her get trained, please let us know. Please let us know what your needs are for your little darling Henry, for instance. So engaging the parents. And then figure eights, that's one of my favorite new contents this year. We got it from the restaurant industry. Our good friend Thad Joyner was totally inspiring me about this. He came from the restaurant industry and just rocks it in childcare. And now he manages and owns Better Beans Branding, and many, many of us have worked with him on all things branding, not just in our buildings and classrooms, but the marketing materials, signage, and whatnot. But the figure eight comes from the restaurant industry, and basically it's managing walking around. You'll start in your parking lot with a complete checklist, just completely structured, again, process and systems, and start maybe at your dumpster in your parking lot, check that the pots have flowers in them and the flowers are growing or beautiful. Your front door is beautiful and clean. Your door handles aren't sticky with little 3-year-old germs. All the 5 senses, and you just go through your building in a specific figure eight manner, maybe the lobby, the director's office. What's the first impression? Using the 5 senses through your whole building to all of your playground spaces, and then back out, checking it off. And then at the end of the day, someone different at a different time, starting the figure eight at a different place of the 8, perhaps on the playgrounds or at the back of the building. Again, comparing, and then there you go, you've got your checklist for any systems that you need to retrain on, for your maintenance person, for your Sam's or Walmart or Amazon supply list. It's managing by walking around. And the other piece on that Kathy alluded to earlier when we talked about labor costs. You don't just have to walk around and go observe in classrooms. Of course, we're evaluating our teachers and coaching them up all the time. But you maybe when you're doing your figure eight, you're going to have that 6th sense of watching what's going on in classrooms as well. So we love the figure eight. And then the last one to recap is our guide to reaching full enrollment. And that we probably did 2 or 3 webinars. We've also spoken nationally, probably 15 times this year about that topic. In general, my #1 trick is having the best staff possible. Hire the best staff you can, pay them the most you can, make it as fair as you can, spend that time one-on-one. And then my other trick would be using career ladders. Using a career ladder and engaging your staff every quarter or twice a year, once a year, if that's all you can manage, better than not. And so it's in addition to doing an evaluation every month, you'll do a career ladder at whatever increment works for you. I try to do it quarterly. We were due to do them in November, and here we are December, and we're still trying to get them completed. But it's a really good way to do one-on-one meetings with your staff. Make them feel really good about themselves. Thank them for everything. We can't thank our staff enough. And then also just what Kathe Ligon does awesome. She's the best leader ever. Anytime she's with any of her staff, she always asks, how can I help? What do you need? And just those really open-ended questions that a director can ask a staff, a director can ask a parent, staff can ask each other. Somebody looks really frazzled today. How can I help? What do you need? I just need 5 minutes. I just want to go get a glass of water. I want to walk out to the mailbox and just get away from the kids there driving me a little cuckoo right now. Those are the kind of things that will help you reach full enrollment. Of course, Molly and I have many, many other actual marketing and sales techniques, but my #1 would be having the best staff possible. Sorry, that took a few minutes.
I'm impressed that you got that, because that was a year-long content.
I know.
It was awesome. So that was a great recap. So thank you for that, Kathy. We're going to jump into some of your questions. Oh, no, we're not. Kathy's going to tell you about books.
We've been doing this year, and we love it, and we're actually brainstorming about doing some type of book club or something. Stay tuned. But these are some of the books we coached and talked about this year. Love Them or Lose Them. It's really good. You can get that one on Amazon. It's really just about getting your staff to stay, and really just that core value of truly appreciating your staff. Don't hire them. This is what I tell my directors. This is another great tip. I hire my directors. I hire people I really like, people I want to work with, people that are fun, people that on those rough days when everybody's a little grumpy, they're going to stick to it with you and manage things without being overly emotional or without, taking their eye off of the goal. Same thing with the directors, with the staff. They need to hire people that they feel that way about. So I really give my directors a lot of leeway in final hiring. As long as they're within our hiring process. The next one is probably one of my very favorite books. The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace is a sequel to the 5 Love Languages. And it was originally started by Gary Chapman. And I'm not sure if Paul White wrote the original one. I'm not positive. But it was about, honestly, for marriage counseling or relationship building. So a lot of counselors use it, a lot of premarital, if you do go to a priest or a rabbi or a minister before a couple gets married, they use the 5 Languages of Love. And essentially what I do at Bright Beginnings is on their onboarding and day, we talk and do evaluations and self-assessments about what their strengths are, perhaps using StrengthsFinder. Dr. Phil has a really cool one I just did a couple weeks ago when I was at a conference in California. There's many free assessments and strengths type assessments, but it also, for the 5 languages, you decide what your favorite language of appreciation is. Everyone's is different. And then decide, for instance, it might be acts of service. An act of service in a preschool might be, I see you're looking a little frustrated today, can I help you? Just jumping in the classroom and sweeping up the Cheerios. That would be an example of an act of service. Or words of appreciation or words of affirmation. Maybe people like words. I love words and kudos. So if someone says, and Kathe Ligon does this great, she knows my language of appreciation and she's always saying, great job, KP. That's all I need. That keeps me going for another month. And so lots of people are like that. Some people like gifts, a little Starbucks card, or just a cute little pen and pencil, or maybe a swag. I had a girl come the other week, I guess last week, and she was helping me unpack and sort out all these books. We had a local school closed and they donated all their books to me, and I'm a children's literature geek, so I literally had 1,000 books here at my office. It was crazy. She came and helped me, and at the end, of course, she's being paid, but she said, can I please have one of the Bright Beginnings sweatshirts? And of course, oh my gosh, she just so much appreciated a $30 sweatshirt that's super cozy and warm. Just again, being intuitive and understanding and saying yes. I like to say yes as much as I can. Traction, oh my gosh. Traction is a game changer for many companies. It's out of Minneapolis, and our good friend Alita does it with her team to the nth degree. Fabulous. She's fabulous. And basically you come up with goals for your team and hold people accountable. There's to-do lists. You talk about what the issue is of not completing something, and it just helps you systemize and move your goals through a pipeline so that nobody is kind of over-scheduled and no one is dropping the ball without accountability. The Carrot Principle, that's a really cool book. Adrian Godstick has written several other books. That is just about, and you can see the carrot, about growing your team from the roots all the way to the produce. I'm going to keep moving because we're running out of time, I hope. Well, I hope not. Workplace wellness, I'm going to just say 2 things about that. First of all, engaging your staff and in being healthy. And I would say not just physically healthy, drinking water, exercising, getting enough sleep, but also emotionally and mentally healthy. Do they have outlets for friends? Do you want to do a bowling night or a movie night? Can you do a spa day? All those kind of wellness. And so important that we're devoting a whole segment at Shift in Austin to wellness, and we've tapped our good friend Alita to help us with that, and she and I have been brainstorming like crazy. It's going to be awesome. And then the last book as a recap is The Dream Manager. Again, engaging staff. This is an example of emotional engagement and helping your staff understand what their goals are. And if you have not read that book, I highly recommend it. This month's recommendation is the energy bus. I'm going to just tell you a couple things. I actually wrote a whole paper on it. I'm not going to go over the whole paper, but I will post it. Basically, it's about being positive and using your positive energy. Why in the world wouldn't we be positive? We work with little kids. We have the best job in the world. It's fun. We get to actually get paid to go out. We have a big snowstorm in Charlottesville, to go out and build a snowman. My staff are getting paid to do that today. How great is that? So the main character, George, is kind of big, grumpy, like an Eeyore. I call my husband Bob Eeyore sometimes. He's not quite so positive. And so poor George was having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, one of my favorite pieces of children's literature. And his car had a flat tire and he had to take the bus to work. And so he interacts with a bus driver named Joy. And she came up with 10 rules that changed his life. You're the driver of your bus. You should fuel your ride with positive energy. I like number 4, invite people on your bus to share your vision. Don't waste, this is a really good one, guys. Number 5, don't waste energy on those who don't get on your bus. So this would even relate to parents. A parent that is just grumpy or does not buy into your core values shouldn't be on your bus. A staff member that perpetually creates gossip or participates in it needs to get off your bus. Stop at that next bus stop and let them off. So this book, The Energy Bus, is fantastic, and I think we'll probably talk more about this in the months to come.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy. We get lots of comments back from people about the book club, and Kathy's done a great job in keeping us on top of good content in the industry. We're going to take some of the questions that were submitted to us in advance, but in the meantime, you guys will see that there's a question bar in your panel on the side of your GoToWebinar screen. You'll see where it says questions. As we're talking, feel free to input yours. We'll get to as many as we can, like we said, and then we will get back with you guys for the ones that we're not able to answer today. I'm going to shift us back to money now, because, you know, that's what I do. And also, you heard Kathy say that you need to hire up, you need to vet, you need to hire the very best people you can, and you need to pay them the best you can. Well, typically the other side of the brain says, well, I'm struggling already. How can I pay them more? I'm already over budget, and I'm fighting with other industries. Another one Kathy didn't recap, but she answered the question on how you compete with other industries for team members and how you compete with other educational companies for team members. I think that was February or March of this year. You might remember exactly, Kathy, but that was good. So I want to jump a little bit to talking about, so this question has come up with from several people, and we got asked this 2 or 3 times in our question list. But I want to look at this a little bit bigger. So the question is, what's going to happen when minimum wage goes up? And there's some states that are going up very significantly. So one of the questions was, in the next 3 years, was increasing 26%. So to take a broader look at this, when we work with clients and they're at a healthy occupancy, again, if you're under 70% full, it's really, really difficult to manage your cost in your staffing really well. Because if you think about it, you have to have your administrators, you need your lead teachers, and as you get more and more full, you typically will fill in with part-time staff or assistant teachers that are a little bit less expensive. So as we look at this with people and they're at that range, so the first key to getting your staff cost under control is occupancy. So your first job is to be as full as possible. And until you are, it's difficult to manage any cost in your building. The second one, and this trips people up, but what are your tuition rates? So we do a lot of training and coaching on not only what are your tuition rates, but how much are you discounting? How many children are either not paying at all in your building, or they're half price, or you've given them a 20% discount? So if you're just counting heads and you're saying I'm licensed for 100 and there are 80 children in the building, so I'm 80% full, how many of those are actually paying you? So we have some methodologies to figure out what your effective occupancy is, and we're happy to help with that. But the first thing to do is to enroll. The second thing to do is look at your tuition rate. So if we're working with somebody and they're really struggling, then the thing we want to look at is, are you over delivering for what you're charging? Now, we know that you guys are quality providers. I've never met a single person in this industry that wanted to just take care of children. But quality teaching is sort of a baseline now, and then we need people who are higher level than that. And we started to notice about a year ago that our clients were having to pay about 10% more for incoming teachers. Well, if you have to pay incoming teachers more than ever before, that doesn't just affect them, you've got to bump everybody else up. Same thing with a minimum wage increase. If your minimum wage goes up 10%, everybody else has to go up 10%. So you can't possibly go up 10% in your staff cost and not significantly raise your tuition rate. So that's the bad news. First of all, be sure that your tuition rate to start with before the minimum wage increase was healthy. If not, and I don't have enough time to go into it, but we do have a webinar and some strategies for getting those shored up quickly. So look at discounts, possibly make changes on incoming families, and we've got some strategies to help alleviate that over time. But if you're faced with a minimum wage increase that's significant, the good news, the bad news was what I just said. That's going to affect everybody, not just minimum wage. The good news is, in my experience of implementing tuition rate increases over 33 years, and a lot of times in conjunction with a minimum wage increase, parents can tolerate higher than usual increases in tuition rates when there's a minimum wage increase. It's expected that things are going to cost more. You need to explain it very well, but you will not have any choice than to put in larger than normal tuition rate increases. This is why it's important for you to do annual increases, not regardless of minimum wage increases. So most people's will be 3 to 5% of their tuition rate. Do it regularly. Again, if you've fallen behind in that, you're not alone. A lot of our clients have, but find strategies to get caught up. But when the minimum wage increase goes in, you're going to have to do some catching up. So communicate well, because of the minimum wage increase and because that affects everyone, and because we are higher quality and we want the very best teachers for your child. Here's where our tuition rates are going to go. Usually, again, you don't have any choice but to do that. Do not miss that opportunity, because if you wait a year after that and now you're really struggling and you say, oh, minimum wage increase, well, that was a year ago. So what have you been doing for the past year, and why are we talking about it now? So communicate really well, but in my experience is that parents can tolerate that. I did have one person ask me, it looks like their state's getting hit, and I believe it was Louisiana, but I think that their state was getting 3 in a row or 4 in a row, and that's going to be tough. I'm going to be honest. Typically, minimum wage increases and changes in standards make it a huge risk for operators in our industry who have smaller schools or who are right at the minimum wage level. It's really tough, and sometimes they can't adjust quickly enough. It's a big challenge for providers who accept subsidy where there's a cap on the tuition rate. So I do not have a magic answer for everything, but if I'm not answering your particular situation, please reach out, because we understand what a struggle this is and we'd love to help you in that. Kathy, as it relates to minimum wage increases, would you add anything to what I just said?
Just as it relates to the discounting, you can reach out to me about One of the strategies I have is parents that are on a discount, those great parents that maybe are having a rough time, someone lost a job, mom's just had a baby, that sort of thing, or just good quality that buy into your core values and support you positively. I have a parent ambassador rate that they do something for their discount. So maybe they're working on helping us enroll, or they're a secret shopper for me. I have 2 or 3 pages of things they can do to make it fair, in order to be fair to everyone, for you to have this small discount. Here's what I need you to help me with. And that works very well.
Okay, great one. Before I move on to the next, I'm going to take about 15 minutes of financial questions. I'm going to leave the other 15 for Kathe, so we won't ignore you. Somebody's asking me to state again what I meant about 45% versus 52%. When I say 45%, that's just salaries. It's just pay for people, vacation time, salary time, overtime, dirty word, and any benefit pay. When I look at the entire bucket of staff costs, then I have to throw in payroll taxes along with the salaries and benefits and training and all the nice things you do for staff. Again, I'm happy to send you guys our pro forma where you can put your numbers in, and it will show you we've separated our financial system, separates expenses into staff costs, program costs, building costs, and admin costs. So when I'm talking about staff costs, I'm talking about the entire bucket of expenses that it costs you to have your staff. So hopefully that answered your question. Here we go again, a new minimum wage increase. I think I covered that okay. If you guys have a different one question, certainly let me know. A formula for setting tuition rates. This is a really good question. So first of all, let me talk about some of the mistakes people made. Some of the mistakes people make is trying to keep themselves under their competition. So first of all, you need to compare yourself with who is actually on your level in your market. So you need to know that, but know whether they're actual competition. Just because they provide early education does not make them competition. Are they providing the same services? Are their teachers as strong as yours? Are their services as robust? You're probably doing some things that are special. STEM, outdoor learning, are they doing any of those things? If you don't have true competition, and I love it when I say to somebody, who is your competition? And they go, I don't really have any. They're other people, but they're not really competition. I'm like, yes, that's the right answer. But if there's true competition, do not be afraid to be slightly higher. If you look at your tuition rate, I think that today's parent group is a little more sophisticated than groups in the past, but I still think they use 2 things as an indication of quality. Your facility, and so Kathe mentioned our friends at Better Beings. They are fabulous, but there are others. Every 10 to 15 years, your building needs a complete refresh. Do not let new and shiny come into your market and attract parents because it looks great and it's fancy. You can maintain your building in a way that keeps it looking bright and shiny. And then the second thing is I lost my second thing. Keep your building, your tuition rate. So if parents are judging your quality, what does your building look like? What's your tuition rate? So if you're $20 lower than the guy down the street, first thing in their head is not usually, oh, good, great value. Is what's wrong with these guys? Why do they not charge as much? So know those things. And then don't be afraid to set your tuition rate at the number that it is costing you to provide services. So we can back into rates with you guys. If I have key information about your school, what is your rent? What are your salaries in your area? I can back in to tell you what your average rate should be for you to make a healthy profit. And I know you're trying to be supportive of your families, but you are not doing anyone any favors if you are not thriving yourself and your school is not thriving. Charge what you need to charge, create the resources you need to invest in your school and your people, and do not struggle. So there are ways to back into it, but again, I think that kind of has to be done on an individual basis. Anything to add to that, KP?
I like two of your really good tricks. One is the hidden rate increase, where the families that are already your really good customers keep their rate. They're kind of grandfathered in, but anybody new, right now we're going to all be getting a big influx of calls. It's going to be January soon. And so that's an easy way. That's just super easy. And the other way would be, as they're moving, if your school is set up that the infants move to a toddler room and the toddlers move to another room, you can do rate increases for when they move. The rate is still typically going down, but maybe not down quite as much.
Right. I like to call the current families legacy families. So maybe this is the strategy for a minimum wage increase as well. We need to go up $20 just a week just to match this level of expense. We will only go up $10 on your rate. Everybody new coming in will pay $20. You are a legacy family. We appreciate your business, but as your child gets older, the rate will not adjust until you get to the market rate. So they feel special, they're legacies, they're rewarded. That is a good strategy for helping to get some things under control. If you're like everybody else in the country, infant and toddler enrollments are booming. There will always be a loss leader for you. Those families can make a choice about whether to come in or not. If you have a waiting list in infant and toddlers, put those tuition rates at the level that it's costing you to provide that service. What is a meaningful Christmas bonus to improve retention? I'm going to let you take this one, KP, because you know my set answer to people when they say how much can we pay staff, I always say as much as you can and still survive, because we can never pay them enough, right? But what do you have some experience and thoughts around Christmas bonuses?
Yeah. So it first of all, it depends on your culture and your core values. Just throwing money at people, and remember with labor laws and whatnot, that's got to be calculated into your payroll. So you want to be really careful that the Christmas bonus isn't putting them into any type of overtime situation. So I would look at that first. Second, it's got to be fair, right? So sometimes some people do it that if they've been with you under a year, they get $50, and 1 to 3 years, it's a little bit more. It could be teachers get a certain bonus, teacher assistants get a certain one, and then managers do. Typically, I like to see a combination. I like to have you find out from your staff what is meaningful to them. Would they just like to do a white elephant potluck party and get a special gift from you? Would they like to get the cash bonus? The main thing would be being fair. And don't go too big. This isn't one of those for go big or go home right now, because remember, they're going to remember what they got last year and they're going to compare it to this year. We decided to do something completely different this year. Our directors will be getting cash bonuses. My staff will be getting a special gift this year. And we've been sourcing gifts. My daughter Molly works with Bright Beginnings and with Hinge, and she found these absolutely gorgeous blankets that she's giving all the staff blankets. And she said, Mom, when these all get delivered, there's 78 blankets. They're all different colors, and they're beautiful, like the fur fuzzy. Actually, I think we just got all white, honestly. I didn't want to be tacky. Anyway, but they'll be all wrapped. There'll be a handwritten note from me and the director, and then probably the directors will do cash. Then our staff decided to do parties themselves. So you can go either way on it. What you want to do is make sure that they feel appreciated. The goal is appreciation, and the question specifically asks about retention. So I would also circle back to 5 languages of appreciation at work. So what will make them feel appreciated? A party where you're going to go out and maybe have a glass of wine and some appetizers, and they can blow off some steam. Maybe it's a potluck. Maybe it's going sled riding together. I don't know what the answer is for you, but you do, or you can ask.
Good one. A couple of questions that have popped in. Several people are asking us for our spreadsheet. I'm so happy to send that to you guys. It makes me really happy when I hear things like Kathy and I heard last week with somebody that said, we have been using this sheet of what our expenses should be for years. So Email us. Several people are popping in with requests for it. We will get that to you. Someone's asking if we have a list of designers to update the space. I would recommend incredibly Thad Joyner at Better Beans Branding. If you look behind Kathe right now is the logo and design they did for her Bright Beginnings schools, and they also did a lobby and building refresh and exterior refresh. So this can be anywhere from complete building overhaul to just some key, they have a real strength in tour stops in your building as you're touring, and where you stop to explain certain core values to parents, and there'll be a visual there that will help you with that. So reach out to us if you'd like to get connected to them. We love their focus on the industry. Kathe, do you know any others that we could recommend?
I just think they're fantastic. If you want to look at my website, we have a gallery of pictures of some of their work as well, and I'm also happy to take a call and talk to you about kind of the details on how that process went. One thing they do really well is listen, which is something we all need to do with our customers. They really made my new refresh, it was actually a big renovation, reflect my personality and our school's culture and values. So big fan of Thad Joyner and Neil.
Your website you mentioned is?
Oh, sorry, Bright Beginnings, VA, like Virginia.com.
Got it. Okay, thank you. All righty. So I'm going to give this one to you.
Great.
What systems, so this is around a salary scale. I had this question from, actually I had a phone call this morning with a friend client. He has about 20 schools, and he mentioned, I said, what's happening? There's always a million things happening, as you guys can imagine. But he is launching a new salary scale because he realized some things like he had 3-year people that were still at minimum wage. He had people who were not being raised regularly because they, they have a degree and they should have been at a higher rate. So he wanted to give his people a guide for that. Kathe, can you speak a little bit to salary scales?
Yes.
And if I can get him to share it, I will send it to all of you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I have a salary scale that I'm happy to share, and several other people in the industry I know do too, and they sort of track it with, it's just a grid, honestly, the number of years experience, if they've come from a licensed setting, and they'll qualify right away in terms of licensing, the type of education they have from a CDA all the way through a master's. I actually hired a PhD staff member recently, and sort of just the formula, wrapping it all in so that it's structured, again, being fair to staff and making sure that when the new hotshot comes in that you are dying to hire and they're going to be a great fit for you in terms of buying into your core values and contributing right away, that you're not bringing them in higher than one of your oldies and goodies that we don't want to overlook and have them, gosh, if that word gets out, we just want to be as fair as possible. The other piece is using a career ladder, and then also swag. So career ladder would be, maybe they don't care about money as much as they care about free childcare. Well, free childcare can be, $1,500, $2,000 a month. So if you factor that in, I want to appreciate someone that might have a little one, and if that's going to make them happy to come to work because little one's across the hall in a great classroom, that's a really good way to appreciate someone. Someone else that doesn't have a child might want that insurance paid or partially paid. And then someone else might just give me the money, and I really want paid holidays, 6 or 7 paid holidays from the get-go. So it's almost a cafeteria plan. And again, if you're meeting with them regularly, my goal is quarterly, but if it's twice a year and having those one-on-one meetings, that helps a lot for you. And then also another great one that helps you and them would be paying for offsite training. We're taking 2 or 3 or 4 of our staff to a big workshop in California about the outdoor classroom. So what I'll say is, I want to grow you, I want to grow your skill set and your education. I'll have something in the contract, about if they leave within a year or two, they might have to pay me back a little bit of it. The goal would be you want them to have some skin in the game, so to speak, too. So if you're really, you know, putting out $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 all told, I take as many staff as I can to anything Kathe Ligon presents, anything Hinge, which would be Thrive and Shift, absolutely. Then also there's some great CDA trainings that will benefit, of course, you and them. So anytime it's win-win is win-win for everybody. The other thing I said was just the swag. Remember I said the girls sorted those 1,000 books and wanted a sweatshirt? So just the little things. If I have a one-on-one meeting, I try to give them a little gift before they leave. So here's maybe a coffee mug, $25 or $30, or if I'm promoting health, maybe the water bottle. These kind of swag. When I do my career ladder, I say, what have we given you? What do you want? What can I give you now? So just that kind of culture of generosity. They work really hard. A $30 water bottle is not going to break the bank, and they're going to go back to work the next day and say, oh, I had a great career ladder meeting with Kathe or with the director, look what I got. And that's going to encourage people to be comfortable coming to career ladders, because sometimes they worry, oh, it's an evaluation and it's all bad. Of course not. It really is a motivating meeting.
Great. Kathe, question, would you share your hiring process and onboarding process? See if I say this correctly. Kathe did one webinar masterclass on hiring and 3 on onboarding before they get hired, the first 30 days and the first 90 days. And I believe that your processes are presented there. Am I right?
Yes. And if they're not, they should be, but if they're not, please reach out to me. I have a Hinge email, kpetchel@hingebrokers.com, or you can reach out to me through Bright Beginnings, but just reach out through Hinge so I make sure I am timely with my response.
Yeah, so anybody that would like a copy of that, reach out. And then if you want to hear Kathe talk about it, along with having a copy of it, I would listen through those master classes because I think the content was fabulous. All right, what are most child care centers doing about health insurance? Good question. What we find is that obviously if you have more than 50 full-time staff members, you're required by law to provide health insurance. If you are under, at times it makes you, even though you're not required, it's really difficult at times to be competitive with the other players in your market if you don't provide health insurance. Kathe, and of course we find in some markets that people say either it's completely cost prohibitive or they don't think that their staff value it as much as it costs. So Kathe, you're required to provide it, so you do, but do you have any other thoughts on that?
They actually, it depends on your provider and it depends on your state. Of course, it's a federal law, as Kathe just said, but we actually had to do an audit on this. And if the staff don't want it and have it someplace else, for instance, with their husband, or they're under 26 and they're still on mom or dad's, then there's an exception on those. So we've had, so you have to offer it. You have to make sure you offer it within whatever your rules are for your health insurance. Ours is they have to be full-time. They designate what full-time is. For me, I think it's 32 hours. And then you want to make sure it's done in a timely manner. You don't have to pay the whole thing, though. I think it's 50% for your staff, but say they want their whole family on the health insurance, then you'd pay your part of what the staff costs, and then they would pay the rest, and you could do a deduction with their payroll. And I would highly recommend that. I don't want to be chasing down my staff for a check or a credit card payment.
Couple of quick questions. Where can we find past webinars? You will have 4 or 5 years worth on our hingebrokers.com website. There was a year on all things operational, like accounts receivable collections, setting your tuition rates, shoring up your discounts. We had a year on the value of your business and the value of your real estate. We had this whole year on staffing, as we said. Next year's on succession planning, and I forgot what the 5th year was, but it was good. So go there to get the past webinars. I think I had another question over here I wanted to throw at you, Kathe. Several people, again, wanting our spreadsheet. Absolutely. Somebody been using it for 5 years, wants an update. Yeah, I've changed. One of the things that's comforting about these cost parameters we're talking about is I put this process, the system for evaluation together first 25 years ago. And in 25 years, I've only changed 2 things. This is a testimony to the stability of the industry and the ability to learn the basic financial fundamentals, and then you have them. So the 2 things that have changed in 25 years is marketing costs are less expensive. Staff benefits, as you just mentioned, health insurance, are more expensive, but they almost canceled each other out. The 2 things I'm tracking right now is this change in staff costs. And again, you guys don't have any choice but to let your tuition rates keep pace. I'll keep pounding you with that. The second thing is credit card fees. Today's parent group loves to pay with credit cards, and those fees can be huge. I'm still a fan of easy money, so if it's easy to collect your money with credit cards, figure out a way to do that, because I think you're spending less time with your collections. But I'm happy to send you guys an updated spreadsheet, so continue to ask that. Let's see, Kathy, we are right at the end of time, but let's get over here. We both jumped in on those. You talked about some of these. Do you have any, I think we're going to hit yours and find out that we hit most of them. Do you have any other thoughts about getting quality staff? This was probably your February and March webinars of this year.
The widen the net, I like to engage my parents instead of them being all grumpy. Why do you have turnover? Why did that toddler teacher leave? Sometimes it's private why they left. Sometimes they're having a baby, or they're moving away, or they had another opportunity. We lose people once in a while to the local school systems. They're paying more. I just lost a fabulous director who is now a principal at one of our local schools. Was I not going to give her a chance to come and make a difference at Bright Beginnings? Of course I was. So engaging with your parents and then appreciating the parents. If you send us someone that we hire, we'll give you a free week of tuition, or will some type of thank you and appreciation. The same with the staff. If you know anyone that's just as good as you are, send them our way and we'll give you $50 or, maybe a swag and some money. We'll appreciate you and, thank you for that. I don't pay it out right away. I like to pay it out maybe after the person's made it through either probation, which for me is 90 days. That's kind of a long time for people to wait for a little bonus. So usually in about 30 days, you've got a sense if they're going to make it or not. So 30 days. Same with the parents. We don't want someone to just come in and try out and I'm paying out a lot of money because I want them to send me good candidates that they've spent a lot of time thinking about.
Right.
I know. Here's what I'm doing in 15 minutes. I'm doing group interviews right now. We have a couple openings. Actually, I have like 3 in one school and 2 in another at the moment. 5 staff because of our enrollment boom. So I put a lot of ads on Indeed, then we're doing a Facebook ad and also Facebook postings. And so one thing I'm doing is a signing bonus, which is, I think I said $200. Again, it'll be paid out after they complete 30 days, maybe $100, and after probation, another 100. So having a signing bonus is sort of what the big people do, like maybe Amazon or all those bigger companies. We want to model after other successful companies. When you think about the lifetime value of a staff member and how much turnover costs, which we know is $5,000 to $8,000, giving them $200 seems like a no-brainer. So that's one. And the other thing I'm doing today is group interviews. So I just said I invited maybe 15 candidates that I found that were pretty good or great. And I said I'm interviewing from 2 to 4 today, or 2:30 to 4:30. And then tomorrow I think it's 3 to 5. And I'll just filter them through. Initially meet. If I like them, I'll further interview and give them some paperwork. I'll have other staff here helping me with that. So I would call that a little bit of a trend, and it's also leveraging my time. I've got not much time. I've done this so long, I can tell if they're going to be a fit, and then I'll send them on to the schools, and we'll still follow the whole hiring process. But I'll vet them today.
Okay, we're over time, but I can't help these last two because
Okay.
these are the two things I hear the most complaints about when I'm out in the marketplace. So the first thing is they don't show up for the interview. So you go through the process and they don't show up for the interview. Do you have any tips on getting them engaged and excited about the interview? And the second one is they don't want to work on Friday or Monday. They're sick or they're out too much. How do you manage the staff member that calls in sick all the time?
Okay, great questions. Whoever sent those, thank you for those. These just bear repeating. So, so in terms of the interview no-shows, it's a gift. Yay. They're not going to show up for work if they're not showing up for an interview. Get over it. Move on. Now, what can you do to help with that? You're going to build a relationship with them when you're doing that initial phone screening. You're going to say, tell me a little bit about yourself. Why do you like kids? Tell me about your experience, maybe which part of town do you live in? I've got 3 locations. There's certain things you can't ask, but there's a lot you can ask. A lot of open-ended questions. You want to engage them and say, let me tell you a couple things, a couple of our core values. Tell me what you think about that. Would you like to work someplace that we communicate a lot? Here's how we communicate. What didn't you like about your last job? I'm also really looking at job hoppers and how long people stay at jobs. So I'm screening before I even start a phone interview. If they're not speaking in correct English, if there's a lot of background noise or they're yelling at their little child, those are red flags. Take those as gifts. So I think the more particular we are, back to vet, cast the net and then vet. So, and then the other thing would be, I use childcare CRM and also the staff piece and also Indeed. And so I'll send out a thank you for setting up the interview. We know everyone's busy nowadays, but if you aren't able to make it, no problem. We can reschedule, but please let us know. Then we'll text a reminder. So a lot of it, honestly, is our fault. We want to engage, and then we want to do our part being professional to ensure that we're not losing a good candidate. What's happened to me a couple times is if you're not answering your phone, and then the director, and we get busy sometimes, we don't answer our phone sometimes, the director calls me and complains, so-and-so didn't show up for an interview. You find out, several hours later, they had actually called and left a message. So don't jump the gun on assuming they are not a good candidate. Make sure you got all your information. The Friday, Monday, that's awesome, and it's really hard. Now I'm trying to engage my staff on Sundays. This is what I think I said this last month, or I might have said it at one of our recent conferences. If you can get to your staff on Sundays, just to check in, put on your staff Facebook page, hope everyone had a great weekend. Can't wait to see you all tomorrow. Oh, by the way, we're bringing bagels in tomorrow morning. What can you do to make them understand we need them at work, right? And so make it fun. I always, you get more bees with honey, right? Or whatever that phrase is. You want to be as positive as you can. And then that said, if they continually miss Fridays and Mondays, which is a trend in our industry, and especially if you're not managing your hours and you're having them stay longer Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday they're approaching their overtime, they're going to think in their head, oh, well, I've already gotten all my hours, I can call out today, right? Because they're living paycheck to paycheck in many cases. So you want to make sure that your hours are structured, that they want to come to work every day. But the Friday to Monday, then some type of point system or some type of rules or procedures in your hiring onboarding process that is set up from the get-go and very clearly stated. We don't mind if you miss unpaid 1 day a month. That would be 12 days a year. That's kind of a lot for someone new. Maybe they're not so you're quantifying it, and then you're either writing them up or having some type of I don't want to say punishment, but some type of consequence is a better word if they are going over, taking more days off. It doesn't have to be that you have to fire them or write them up. You could change their schedule and they lose their hours. You could bump their pay down a little bit. I hate to say that because we're trying to pay them a lot, but in order to be fair to the rest of the staff, you want to have thoroughbreds. Dave Ramsey coaches on this, the thoroughbreds versus the donkeys. The donkeys are the ones that call out Fridays and Mondays, and the good old thoroughbreds are there every single day. They get irritated with those people that don't come on Fridays or Mondays. So you do have to get it under control. I'm happy to talk to the person that asked that question. I have more strategies on that.
Yeah, they not only get irritated with the person calling out, they get irritated with you for not keeping it under control, right?
Yep.
We appreciate you guys sticking with us for 10 extra minutes. This is questions just popping in, and everyone that started with us is still engaged. We feel your pain. We've been hearing you this year. We are trying to develop as much great content as possible. We are in a new place in the industry, as are other industries, with the staff crunch and also the ability to deal with multi-generations, which Kathe talks about in our series as well, and how to interact with people at different places in their lives. So we would love your feedback. Consider joining us at Shift. I think you'll enjoy it. Tune in 2019 for our succession planning series. Obviously, a lot of that's around staff, because you have to build a dynamic team to be able to move your business to the next place. And so we understand the ramifications of this. You guys rock, so thank you for that comment. We appreciate you all. Reach out, please, if you don't get all of the help and information that you need. We'll do everything we can to be part of your solution team. Thank you, KP.
Thanks, Kathe. Thank you, everyone.
Talk soon.
Bye, guys.